Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X research and professional physicist. And today I'd like to bring to you another one of my articles. This one is entitled Sun Halos, Product of the Artificial Sky Simulation System. Now, Figure 1 shows a group of sun halos which appeared over the skies in New Hampshire on Saturday, December 1st, 2018. And this image appeared in a Washington Post article entitled The Story Behind an Incredible Sky Scene in New Hampshire, which went on to explain that sun halos are due to refraction by ice crystals, which form hexagonal structures and thus act as prisms and thus refract sunlight by about 22 degrees. And so you can see here it looks like a huge sun halo, and to me it looks like a couple more sun halos, but they have their own explanation. But there are huge problems with the explanation, and that is that there is no way to cause the ice crystals to be perfectly aligned so that they all cause light to leave each adjacent crystal at the same angle with respect to the ground. Light would also enter and leave each crystal at different angles because they would have a random orientation with respect to the ground and the light incident on them. So ice crystals in the air would simply look white and cannot produce a halo. So this is what ice crystals look like. First of all, it's unlikely that all of them will be in a hexagonal structure, but even if they were, they would have different orientations. And so light would enter and leave each of them at different angles. So it would be impossible to have the same color coming from the same section in the sky like it does with a rainbow. The only way ice crystals may be aligned is if they have formed large solid ice sheets in the sky. But it would be logical to expect there to be large solid ice sheets in the sky, as they would become too heavy to remain suspended in the atmosphere. And if very thin, the ice sheet would be shattered by the movement of air, and so the orientation would fall apart again. The only way to get a circular rainbow, a circular shaped rainbow type effect, is through refraction by a solid object like a large lens in front of a light source. A normal rainbow is produced by droplets of water, and it takes two refractions and a total internal reflection to produce, and this is illustrated here. Sunlight would come in through the droplet, which is approximately spherical. There's a refraction at the entrance. There's another refraction, which is actually a total internal reflection at the back. And then there is another refraction on light exiting the droplet. And this causes the blue and the red light to be separated by quite a large amount. But we basically had three refractions. And the light has to be incident on the back of a droplet of water at an angle of or greater than 49 degrees, which is the critical angle of water. Now, the critical angle for ice is just slightly larger, it's 50 degrees. So in order to produce the same degree of separation with ice, light would need to also be refracted twice, and there would also need to be a total internal reflection. But ice crystals do not have spherical interfaces like a droplet does. So how the total internal reflection would occur depends on how it enters and how it is incident on the back side of the crystal. So you are never going to get the same effect that you get with liquid water droplet. And so ice crystals because they do not, it is impossible for light to come out of each crystal at the same angle. And this is how a rainbow is produced. Each droplet of water allows sunlight, to the different colors of sunlight, which are now separated, to come out at the same angle, but then that means that a different color is seen coming from a different portion of the sky. So the blue and the red always come out at the same angle, but this droplet is slightly above that droplet. And so the red light is captured, is observed or detected by the eye as coming from that part of the sky. The blue ray, which comes out at a slightly higher angle, will go above the eye, so will not be observed. Whilst from this portion of the sky, the light that comes out, it comes out at the same angle as there, the blue light, but the blue light coming from this section of the sky is what is incident on the eye. So the eye observes blue light as coming from below the red light, and in between there will be yellow. So there will be these three colors coming from different portions of the sky, and you end up with a rainbow. Now, crystals cannot, therefore, produce rainbow type effects in the sky. The fact that anyone who understands geometric optics can even come up with this type of explanation is beyond ridiculous. In addition, different terms such as crepuscular rays and perihelic circle are used to give these false explanations a semblance of being science, when these terms are simply definitions which explain absolutely nothing. Crepuscular rays is a term which means divergent light rays. A perihelic circle is a straight line light ray connecting the center of the circle with the edge, and also does not explain the phenomenon in any way. The second problem is that this cannot be produced by sunlight because the sun has not been shining for years and has been replaced by simulators. So if anything is causing the multiple halo effect is the artificial sun and sky simulation system. The reason why they are divergent light rays from the light source in the center is because the source is close to the observer, i.e. it is in the atmosphere. And here we see in this photograph, we see some chemtrail clouds and we see the sun simulator. How do we know it's a sun simulator? Well, first of all, it's white, and second of all, it's hexagonal. The real sun would be perfectly circular and yellow. So this is a sun simulator. And the simulator, as I said, has a hexagonal outline. There are two blue laser beams running through it. The chemtrail we see here forms a shadow on a cloud above it. There's the shadow. Shadows on cloud are only possible if the sun is not illuminating the atmosphere from above. In other words, the sun is not shining. If the sun was shining, it would be impossible to have shadows on clouds because the light would be coming from above the cloud. There would be no way you could have a darker portion on that cloud because it's being illuminated from behind, not from below. So here's a close-up of that shadow. A shadow can only be visible if the chemtrail producing it is below the cloud where the shadow appears. The light source must also be below both the chemtrail and the cloud above it, indicating that the illumination is coming from below. So the chemtrail is below the cloud on which we see the shadow. And the light source illuminating the chemtrail and giving rise to the shadow must be below the chemtrail. So both below the chemtrail and this cloud on which we see the shadow. And for more details, you may look at Article 385 entitled No Real Sun. The atmosphere is being illuminated from within. And now here we see another piece of evidence, and this comes from August 12, 2011, when in Argentina, day suddenly turned into night. In other words, it went from middle of the day to the middle of the night suddenly, within a second, or maybe even less. It was sudden. So the suddenness with which the sky became dark suggests that it was an artificial system providing that light, as the real sun cannot go dark suddenly, and any other process such a huge dark cloud or an eclipse would cause the sky to go dark gradually, not suddenly. Also, if a cloud was moving across the surface of the earth, it would be seen approaching and covering up the sun gradually as it moved over the region. Nothing like that occurred. And you may look at Article 382 entitled "The Sun is No Longer Shining, Surface Observations." Thus, ice crystals cannot produce the sun halo effect, and the sun is not shining, which leaves the sky simulation system as the only possible source of such a phenomenon. We know that the simulators are based on lasers, and you may look at Article 466 entitled "Sun Simulated Technologies Based on Lasers and the Sun is No Longer Shining Discovery." And here is one of these sun simulators. It's hexagonal. It basically has 6 sides. You see 3 laser beams coming from below here, from above there, and then 4 other double beams. So it's hexagonal. And this device is multicolored, so it has multicolored additional light sources in addition to the white one that is concentrated at the center. And there are multiple other disc-shaped devices which seem to have holes in them in an array type of pattern. This is therefore what a lot of the laser projects in the atmosphere are likely to look like. It is most likely much smaller than it appears, but the lensing and projection system itself must magnify it, i.e. there is a magnifying lensing system associated with it. So this illustrates what we most likely have in the sky. We have several holographic laser projectors. They may most likely are at least 3 working with each individual system, because you need a red, a blue, and a green. But then you would have to have a diverging lens so that the light coming from the laser gets spread out and illuminates the atmosphere. And so the whole of the atmosphere, there will be lots of these that are illuminating the atmosphere. In the absence of light coming from the sun, this is what is needed. Then in the portion of the sky where the sun is supposed to be, then an additional lens would be required to then concentrate the light so that it looks like the sun is there. But because the light in that portion of the sky is concentrated, it takes light away from the adjacent region. So you produce a darker sky around where the sun seems to be. So this is what the observer on the ground would see. Most of the sky would be blue, where the light from the simulators, from the holographic projectors, is just spreads out and illuminates large portions of that sky. But where the sun is, you would get the sun effect, and then you get a darker sky around it. And then to produce this type of effect, what we would need is several of these setups combined, where each of them has lensing systems that produces the sun. And in order to produce the sun halo effect, what then happens is light from the other simulators around the simulator that is giving rise to the appearance of the sun. Some of the light goes through the edge of this lens, and then that light would be refracted by the lens, and there may be some spreading out, some splitting of the colors, and it will then give rise to the sun halo effect. Now these may be angled in any direction. They may be angled downwards, sideways, or upwards. It's obvious that some of them are being angled upwards because that is the only way that we can have shadows on clouds. So some will be angled downwards and some upwards in order to boost the blue lighting of the atmosphere and make it look blue. And most likely they're also adding a lot more blue to the sky than just the other normal colors that would go into producing white light, which is red, green, and blue. So they would have red, green, and blue, and then extra blue. Now, since it is the entrance of stellar core dust entering the atmosphere that would tend to cause the sky to darken, the use of more than one holographic projector to create the sun in the sky is most likely a sign that a larger amount of stellar core dust than normal has recently entered the atmosphere. In addition, they are most likely using much more blue laser light than any other frequency, as the stellar core matter seems to absorb this color more than the others, which is why the skies look red at sunset and sunrise. In order to stop the sky from looking red, much more blue light would need to be added to the sky. Thus, the sky looking red at sunset may be because no extra blue is added at that time. It is possible that it would look like that all the time, but that extra blue light and maybe some green light is added at other times, so throughout the day and maybe most of the night too. And you may look at article 447 entitled Increased Planet X Dust Entering Atmosphere and Creating Red Skies. They are thus purposely allowing the sky to look as it does at sunset and sunrise, and it must therefore be a form of disclosure. And you may look at article 464 entitled Sun Simulated Disclosure. They knew the sun was dying in 1961. So in conclusion, halos around the sun are the product of the sun and sky simulation system in operation in the Earth's atmosphere. Red skies at sunset are most likely what the skies would look like all the time if no extra blue light was added to the atmosphere's artificial illumination. And those are the references. This is Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X physicist. Thank you for watching.